for the Russian company which cooperate with the Schneider Electric, for example, to also be in compliance with all the sustainability policy. I will let the floor to Florian. Florian Willershausen is a director of the Creon Capital. It's a Luxembourg-based investment fund, but also part of the big Creon group, which is also located in Russia. But I think, Florian, you will explain yourself, because your presentation will be as following the explanation of Johan.
All right, with pleasure. Thank you very much, Oleg. Sorry for being a bit sunburned. I yesterday came back from a sailing trip, and it is clearly underlined also by the red interior of my hotel room here in Germany. So maybe you switch on the presentation quickly.
Yes, I will do. Just a second. Creon Capital presentation. Share. Oops.
So my name is Florian Willershausen, working as a director for mostly business development with Creon Capital, Luxembourg-based fund management company initiated by the Russian consulting company Creon Group, which has been for several years also in the especially environmental linked project involved. So this is now about green finance and ESG integration. We go ahead with the next slide. Maybe one step back to remind everybody what is meant, and let's decrypt the letters ESG. So E is dealing with environmental issues, which is crucial, especially as Johan mentioned before, for Russia. So we are talking here about measures to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, increase biodiversity or keep the biodiversity. Also about circular economy, which is getting a more and more important topic for Russia as well. Another letter S, social worker treatment, product liability, working safety, and other measures which have to be kept in mind. And governance, of course, anti-corruption, transparency, gender equality. All these factors are more and more evaluated by banks and lenders in the financial community, the capital markets. And this is the important point, because ESG is the investor's viewpoint on corporate social responsibility. Today I'm going to talk more about first the environmental aspect of ESG integration. We get back on one slide back, because that's the second moment, because I also want to link that to the corporate level in Russia. Now, basically, when we talk about corporate social responsibility on the corporate level, we have several levels where this could happen. Usually companies start with some kind of, let's put it negatively, greenwashing, and the oil company could argue, well, we are dealing with a lot of carbons here because we are selling them. Let's plant some trees to okay.
It's the good one or not? Because I don't know. It was something was broken on the screen.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I could also try to use my presentation, because something here crashed because you don't have the fonts.
I will let you share your presentation by yourself. Just a second.
All right.
I have to share screen. I authorize it. You can do it.
Okay. So I have to find that.
Apologize. Huh?
No problem. So so can you now see the presentation again?
Yes, but it's the last, I think, page.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's not that much, basically, so I'll quickly run through that to leave more room for discussions. So oil company planting trees, that could be the first step, and merely a PR measures. That's where it all starts usually. and somebody is doing corporate social responsibility and ESG integration. A second level would be ESG, let's say, orientation done by specialized departments with ecologists, reporting on environmental issues, but also the governance measures and the anti-corruption plans of a company and concrete achievements. But this already shifts from the PR department of a company to specialized CSR, sustainability, whatever you like, or whatever you like to name it, a department, and also becomes more attention by the upper level. But actually what we need to take the topic of ESG integration seriously is that this becomes an integral part of the company strategy, with the CEO of a company taking this as a strategic topic and paying attention to concrete measures, how to ensure and increase ESG integration in any company. And this would, by the way, also mean some disruptive investments and technologies to be introduced. I would say that on a, let's say, greenwashing level, one might argue when a company such as Shell starts to invest in hydrogen, some might argue there on that level that they are crazy and stupid, because actually they demolish their own business model. But instead, this is actually a very progressive move forward, which would be recommended also to Russian oil and gas companies, for instance, because investing in hydrogen, but also in renewable energies, helps to diversify and balance the business model as of today, and protect it for the future. So there is gonna be a lot of pressure also on Russian and Eurasian companies to do more in terms of ESG integration, because of large lenders such as the Norway State Fund, the Luxembourg European Investment Bank, and also large private equity firms in the United States like BlackRock, which already decided to either divest, such as Norway guys, from their shares from carbon-related companies, or to stop in future to finance any carbon-related project to become totally green and ESG compliant, especially E-compliant, I would say. So more and more funds will be directed to ESG-oriented projects and companies. Why does it matter for Russia? We heard a lot about that already. I would say there are two levels of relevance for Russia. One is the rational approach, also one which is more important for the society, but also politicians. Yes, Russia is doing moves towards more environmental friendly policies. It could be done much more, as Johan already underlined. The country joined the Paris Climate Agreement, but yes, we need to save more GHG emissions, reduce them significantly. We heard that already, but when we get back to the corporate level, then we have to look on environmental issues, but also on ESG as the broader understanding from a different standpoint, because we have to keep in view the liquidity of the market for green bonds and ESG related products. Because at the end of the day, we are not the nice guys saving the environment because we would like to do that. We have nothing as businessmen to do with Greta Thunberg, but when the financial market dictates us to issue some time from now green bonds instead of conventional bonds to raise money on the international capital markets, and that situation will happen sooner or later, then we will be forced as companies and investors to push these according topics ahead. And we already see that when we talk about green bonds and green loans, that the overall volume already reached $260 billion, which is quite a lot, with significant increases in Japan, also in European countries. We have now large companies such as BASF joining the green bond market as well. So the chemical companies are joining as emitters of green bonds, and generally speaking, more than 80% of institutional investors plan to work only with companies complying to the sustainable development goals in a couple of years from now. The tendency is clear, but it's also clear that in terms of non-financial reporting, as one of the example how concrete measures could be described, that in Russia we do not find evidence that the companies already did enough if we compare just the number of non-financial reports in Russia with those from the other parts of the world. And despite the fact that actually ESG related portfolios to stay at the capital market and have a look to private equity business are already more stable and more profitable than others. So there is a lot of pressure actually evolving from the outside on companies. So the financial sector was mentioned already. On the corporate level, we could add that also strategic partners, customers, the public demand from companies more and more to do as much as they can and report on that transparently in terms of environmental protection, but also social and governance policy should be implemented seriously. And at the same time, well, we have some activity on the national level in Russia with regulations to stimulate waste treatment, associated petroleum gas processing and energy saving. A lot of regulatory acts already in place, and some will follow more and more, because also Russia has, despite the fact that it's not ambitious enough to deliver in terms of GHG reduction targets. European level, of course, with the taxonomy on sustainable financing will put some more pressure also on Russian companies seeking to raise money in Europe, especially Luxembourg, because, well, if a country such as Russia has, because of sanctions, per se difficulties to gain external financing in Western financial markets for cheap, in future it will be much more expensive if they cannot provide any proof that they deal with environmental issues. Actually, the situation to come to an end is not that bad. I know that because our partner in Moscow, Creon Group, started together with WWF Russia about 7 years ago to rate oil and gas companies in terms of environmental responsibility and the transparency on ecological issues. And in the first couple of years, it was very difficult only to receive some data and more detailed information. So it was a bumpy start of that project, but in the meantime, it became much easier, and now all the companies have more and more sophisticated reporting in place, at least in the oil and gas industry. They do protection measuring of, let's say, pipeline safety and such things. That's we see some progress, and it's time to show that, which they do not, because actually the involvement of Russian companies in the ESG community in Europe is still very limited. That's what we are proposing with Creon Group in Moscow, but also with the Creon Capital investment company Luxembourg, to intermediate between Eurasia and Europe in terms of green financing and concrete projects to increase the environmental activities and decrease the GHG emissions together with them. Also, as a co-investor in projects, cannot see that, but we have projects in terms of recreation and green technologies and renewable energy business, but also recycling we're now looking into. So that's all for the moment. We'll share the presentation with you. So here I'm not sunburned, and you find my contact details here. So let's have a nice discussion.
Thank you very much, Florian. But I apologize for these technical difficulties. But anyway, we decided at the end of our webinar, I will send by email to you all the files with the presentation. And as